Hi, this is day 2 of the Energy Forum for Africa conference that is taking place at the Mulungushi International Conference Center. Yesterday being day 1 was fully packed as we saw the President of the Republic of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, officially open the conference. Today being day 2 looks very packed as well because we're going to be seeing a lot of panel discussions and also presentations that are going to be taking place right here at the conference. My name is Chimwemwe Lungu from Financial Insights, and I'm going to be bringing you all the insights that are going to be happening right here at the conference. I'm also going to be having different conversations and also interviews with different people, delegates that are going to be attending the conference, and also some of the sponsors of the Energy for Africa conference right here at the Mulungushi International Conference Center in Lusaka. So do stay tuned for more insights right here on Financial Insights. Remember, get to know.
What are the priority areas for energy that your government is going to prioritize in order to attract investment in the energy sector?
First, we have demands outstripping supply of energy. Therefore, we have to generate energy. We have to transmit the energy. We have to deliver it where it's needed. At a saloon shop, at a farm to irrigate, at a mine, at a factory, in your home. That's our agenda. So anything that stands in the way of slowing this agenda, whether it's a law, a regulation, a policy, a regulation, a law, we will dismantle it so that we can deliver energy sufficiency and surplus. Very simple. So anything that stands in the way, if it's you, we'll put you aside. We want delivery. What we were doing in Mamba yesterday, we said we'll do it, and we did it. We raised the money, $400 million from this market, and the construction is started. We went to officiate it yesterday, and 24 months' time from now, both turbines, both generators, 150 megawatts, 300 will be supplying power to the grid, into your home, into a farm, into a mine, into a factory. That's the language we want. That's the way we want to work. Different culture, delivery. That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir.
Otherwise, we will not be here.
That the various strengths
I think the key point is that we are here to provide a solution. We will not lament. The challenge is here. We acknowledge the challenge, but we believe that we have the capacity, we have the know-how to circumvent this situation, and come 2030, we should be energy sufficient.
Inaugural Energy Forum for Africa here in Lusaka, with special thanks to Madam Chanda for convening us and I think drawing our attention not just to the immediate crisis, but to really think about sustainable long-term solutions as well. GreenCo is an energy trader, the first of its kind to have been registered in Zambia. and is born of a deep collaboration across not just the electricity sector, but really spanning the full value chain of all the pieces that need to come together to bring about the necessary investment in new generation capacity, but also looking further downstream into what is it that is going to make projects viable and open up markets, i.e. the downstream infrastructure investment in transmission and infrastructure. But most importantly, helping to catalyze the reforms that are needed for the private sector's participation to increase in the sector and take away risks that have traditionally been allocated to the national utilities and governments that the private sector can participate in and take on. And so from that perspective, GreenCo has led in the markets that we participated in 4 markets now in the region with innovation and bringing structuring to the financing of projects and the allocation of that risk in a rational way that allocates the rewards to where they ought to be in the value chain. We also recognize the need to not just add capacity and generation, but to do so in the context of a just energy transition with clean and sustainable renewable energy being the hallmark and underpinning the future of energy in the region. In Zambia, we are seeing great steps such as the introduction or the approval of the open access market regime, again signaling to the region and to the wide investment community that indeed Zambia is taking the big and brave concrete steps to open up and allow for investment to flow and for the private sector to really play a more meaningful role in our electricity sector going forward. So we're very grateful to the government for taking that step. It's been long on the cards, and to see that being implemented now is really for a lot of us a dream come true, and we look forward to continue playing a constructive role with the government and other players in the sector to make sure that it's implemented and works in a very fair and equitable way for all concerned and stakeholders. So with those words, thank you very much, and we look forward to a very successful event that will be solution-oriented and solution-driven and not focusing on the questions and the problems. Thank you.
The impact of climate change cannot be overstated. Everyone in Zambia is experiencing it at the moment. As we saw the announcement by the Minister of Energy of the government of Zambia just today, that it's anticipated that load shedding will now continue for 17 hours a day. That reality is a direct impact of the recent El Nino effect on this country. As we know, everywhere else, there is requirements for decarbonization. South Africa in particular is decommissioning their core power plants, and all of this will have significant impact on the overall stability of the electricity sector in Southern Africa. And all of this is happening within the reality that the fiscal space in the continent is very severely challenged. And as you can see here, that the continents that overall exceeds 17% of GDP. This is a problem. Ask a question, if that's okay. Yeah, of course. Just to hear from some of the panelists, maybe, could I ask a question of every panelist, and then they can go in around? Because I'd love to hear from them. So Farai, not to put you on the spot, but the African Development Bank, what are you doing and which transmission projects have you already invested in? And I think, Mutale, if we could hear from CEC, amazing successes on the bond issuance for CEC renewables. Could you replicate something like that in the transmission space? Helen, where is the private sector bank on the transmission side? Are you following African Development Bank and the IFC? And I think, Divesh, similar to you, IFC. Where have you delivered? Where have you deployed the capital? And then if I could ask the same question to Mr. Walia and Mr. Monga on the ZESCO side. We all realize the geographical importance of ZESCO and of Zambia. So what are those exciting projects so that at the end of this CEO forum, we link you with AFDB and IFC and Standard Bank and CEC, because of course all these new transmission lines have to talk to each other. Farai, over to you, no pressure.
None at all, thank you. Yeah, so in terms of the work that we're currently doing, we have one project which I would say is under construction. It's part of a regional link or facilitates the exchange of power between Mozambique and Malawi. It's called the Songo Matambo transmission line. So that's one project that we're currently, in the implementation phase on. We have a few that we are finalizing studies on. The first one would be the Mozambique-Zambia interconnector. We are finalizing studies specifically because of all the issues that we've spoken about in terms of limited fiscal space. We have had to take a second look and see what private sector or what models would actually attract the private sector into the construction of that line from Zambia into, or rather from Mozambique or from Zambia into Mozambique, whichever way you want to look at it. And we are taking a similar approach on the Solwezi-Kolwezi. And again, it's just important I think to some people it sounds as if we are taking our time doing it, but I think all of these projects had initially been studied as public sector projects, which would mean the government would need to go out and borrow. But again, so we have had to change the approach.
So what do we as GreenCo think is the way forward? So for us, the way forward is truly to look at everything through a regional lens, to see how can we pool risks on a regional basis to benefit individual countries, especially those that are smaller in size and cannot attract investment by looking at diversification of risk on a national country basis alone. Pooling of risks means opening up of the markets and leveraging the existing connectivity we can already see through the Southern African Power Pool in the Southern African context. Zambia sitting at the heart of that power pool. And at the heart of the power pool's interconnectedness in the future, East African Power Pool. So we're not only pooling the risk across national fiscals, we're pooling the risk across supply and demand. Why are we doing that? In order to make those that we all have to be made comfortable being the lenders, making these projects more bankable. So we are very excited about these developments. I would also say GreenCo is a regional entity, but our home is in Zambia. We started in Zambia. We are now in South Africa, in Namibia, and Zimbabwe as well. Why Zambia? Because Zambia started the route towards opening the market through the Electricity Act of 2019. And as we heard during His Excellency's speech on Wednesday morning, a beautiful development has happened over the past few days, which is the publication of the enacted statutory instrument, which is SI of 2024, which now embeds the open access regulations into the Zambian electricity space, as approved by Cabinet in June of this year. This is a great development. And why it's a great development? Because only through open access can we achieve that regional leverage and pooling of risks through a more integrated approach for developing transmission, distribution, and generation. Open access in individual markets will inevitably lead to more regional integration and trade. Saw that in the Nord Pool, in the Nordics. We saw that everywhere else in the world. Open access is introduced in most of the countries in the world that have gone through a certain level of change. And it's really fascinating to see how this ecosystem is now opening up amongst not only national but regional players, and what the effects of that will be on the bankability of projects.
Day 3 of the Energy Forum for Africa conference taking place right here at the Mulungushi International Conference Center. I'm still having different conversations and different interviews right here at the conference, and I have the rare honor and privilege of being joined by Dr. Chizunga from Africa GreenCo. He recently joined the company, so I'm just going to ask him to fully introduce himself and also his new role at Africa GreenCo. Sir, thank you for joining us on Financial Insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what really motivated you to join the company? You would have gone for any other company. What was your biggest motivation for joining Africa GreenCo?
It's a great question. I've known the team here for quite a while. I've known Anna for quite a while as well. I've had lots of interaction with them. It's a very dynamic team of people, and they're doing some really exciting things. So I think that at the end of the day, that was really the deciding factor for me, is I want to be part of a group that's working at the cutting edge, that's going to have a huge impact on the deployment of renewable energy, not only in Zambia, but in the region. And they're a wonderful group of people to work with. So it really was an easy decision.
Yes. So just run us through, in your new position at Africa GreenCo, what are some of your short-term and also long-term objectives for the company?
Yeah, I think in the short term, where I think everyone's aware, Africa GreenCo is working on a battery energy storage pilot project. And so in the short term, my focus is really to try and bring that project to fruition, get it to make sure it happens, get it off the ground, learn from that pilot, and then take those learnings and use that knowledge to deploy a bigger portfolio of battery energy storage solutions in Zambia and in the Southern African Power Pool. That's really my short-term focus. Longer term, we're also looking at other ways to make use of renewable energy. A big focus is the generation or the manufacture of green hydrogen from renewable energy. We're working on a project like that right now in South Africa. It's a bit of a longer-term project. It'll take a little bit more time to come to fruition. But yeah, those are the two things that are sort of my immediate priorities.
So how do you assess the current regulatory environment when it comes to renewable energy in Zambia, and how are you as GreenCo planning to navigate some of those regulatory, planning on navigating the regulatory environment in Zambia?
The new environment is fantastic. I think it's everything that we've been asking for a long time. Open access, the ability for private sector players to participate in the electricity supply industry, the ability to trade power, the ability to sell power on a bilateral basis or to multiple off-takers. All of that has been enabled recently by the new legislation that's been passed. There's still some regulations that need to be ironed out in order for it to truly happen, but all of that is happening quite quickly. So the environment for private sector participants in the electricity supply industry has never been as good as it is right now, and we're looking to obviously take full advantage of that. I think it's also worth pointing out that it's not just happening in Zambia. Zambia has certainly been a first mover. Zambia is moving a lot more quickly than the other countries in the Southern African Power Pool, but we're seeing the same initiatives taking place in other countries in the Southern African Power Pool as well, which is a very welcome development.
The model that Africa GreenCo has and what Africa GreenCo is doing, I have worked in the energy sector for 21 years, I've told you. And I've seen a lot of initiative and desire to develop power projects, to improve livelihood, to improve energy poverty. But I've observed in all those years that there has been one big obstacle in all those initiatives, and that is when it bring projects to financial close, because projects are not bankable, agreements are not bankable. What Africa GreenCo is bringing to ensure that power projects are bankable is what actually drew me, because this was part of my pain in the 20 years that I've been working in the energy sector. And I just realized this is the solution that I've been looking for. We now want to get projects bankable. Africa GreenCo is focusing on clean energy. So the carbon footprint for most companies is significantly going to be improved as well as we go through this journey with Africa GreenCo. So particularly the bankability of the projects with Africa GreenCo, the flexibility of the trading in Africa GreenCo is what has drawn me back home to Africa GreenCo.
I love the fact that you have talked about the bankability of the projects at Africa GreenCo. So prior to joining Africa GreenCo, Mr. Mashiri, what are some of the most impactful projects that you worked on in your 20 years experience in power trading?
Well, in Zimbabwe, I was part of the development of what they call a HEXCO, the Wange Extension Power Project, which is already running now. I was also part of the development of the Kariba South Extension Project, which is again running now. These, I would say, were the key projects that I participated in terms of new projects. But even then, I will still go back to bankability. To get those projects to be banked, what we went through to get those projects banked opened my eyes, and it drew in the government. It drew in government guarantees, and that was a strain on government. Private sector remained on the peripheries. So this is why I'm here now, because private sector has to be active. Private sector has to solve our problems. And it is the model that GreenCo has that is bringing in private sector. The projects that I mentioned are all linked to government and government guarantees.
Yes. Mr. Mashiri, what are some of the challenges that are being faced in the energy sector in Africa, and how are you going to help address some of those challenges that are being faced in the energy sector in your new position at Africa GreenCo?
Thank you. One of the challenges, the main challenges, the main challenge really is funding. I'll come back to funding later. But it being funding of generation, and everybody is focusing on generation, the second biggest problem is transmission. We, for your information, our poverty is not as much as it looks like in terms of power itself, capacity. Our poverty is getting the power to the people. And this problem is coming in because we do not have enough transmission capacity. We have, you may be aware that we don't consume the same amount of power throughout the day. Mm-hmm. This changes, and as you may also have observed, the times when we are shared most, the demand for power shoots up during the evening, which we call the evening peak. But are you aware that when we have evening peak here in Zambia, they are already outside evening peak in Nairobi, so they may have access, and probably they haven't even gotten to evening peak in Vindo. They are still before evening peak. So if we have enough transmission capacity, it means at the time that we need more power here, our neighbors may not need the power that they have. They can send that power to us. At the time that we are at our trough, we need the least power here. Somebody else needs more power. We can send that power to them. So, being responsible for regional engagements in SAP, what we are also trying to do at Africa GreenCo is to bring to the awareness of the investors the need to invest in transmission in the various jurisdictions within the region, so that we open the way for power to flow to where it is needed at the time that it is needed. I mentioned bankability. And that's the key part of what Africa GreenCo is doing. The liquidity buffer that we give. Why? Let me just move back a little bit. Why most investors end up shying away, although they love power generation, they love the energy sector, they end up shying away because they need to be sure that their project is going to be viable. They need to be sure that the invoices that will be generated from those power projects will be paid. And this is what Africa GreenCo is bringing in through its liquidity buffer, which we sign with the IPPs, which guarantees them that whatever happens to the project, whatever happens to the final off-taker, their invoices will be made good for an agreed period that we'll sign with the IPPs. That gives the comfort to the investors, that gives the comfort to the financiers that the project is viable. And this is what we are bringing into the sector as Africa GreenCo, to try to alleviate the problems that we have seen over the years in Africa, in the region, in SADC in particular.